Today we have a great story of revenge on an awful regular at a fast food job. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, Donna. In 1975, long before I met her, my old friend Donna had a baby girl. Donna was still in high school when her daughter was born, but she was determined to be a good mother. She loved that little girl with her whole being. When Anna was old enough to go to school, Donna worked late nights as a radio announcer/DJ so she could sleep during the day while Anna was in school. That way, she could get her ready for school, sleep, pick her up after school, and be able to take her to her events or to the park or just hang out with her. She kept a phone in her bedroom, and everyone knew not to call during the day. But she left it on so that if the school called or there was some kind of emergency with family, she'd be able to find out and handle things. This worked very well until the day one of the local dental offices ended up with misprinted business cards. Instead of the number of the dentist, 2 digits were transposed and Donna's number appeared on the cards instead. At first, the few calls she got were easily handled. She just said the caller had the wrong number and gave them the correct one. But the cards kept being handed out and handed out and handed out from the dentist's office. There was also a mass mailing. Guess all those things happened before they'd noticed the error. Apparently, the mass mailing was a good investment for the dentist. Donna's phone was ringing between 15 and 30 times a day while she was trying to sleep after working all night long. So she called the dental office. The lady she talked to was less than helpful, told Donna that it wasn't her fault, that there was no way to go through thousands of business cards and fix the tiny error, and that she was sure that after a while, people would stop calling. And she hung up on her. So Donna waited a couple of weeks, during which the call volume actually increased. She called the office back one afternoon and got the same person on the phone. This time, the woman was ticked as heck that Donna had called her. She acted like the entire situation was Donna's fault and told her, "It's not my freaking problem, stop calling. We have things to do here and don't have time for phone calls from people who were just calling to whine," and the receptionist hung up again. Donna's actual words when she was telling me this story were, "She slammed the phone down so hard I'm sure she broke the handset." So Donna decided to fix the issue herself. When her phone began ringing at 7 a.m., she started making appointments for the people who called in. She didn't answer the phone pretending to be the dental offices either. She answered, "Hello," when it rang. No one seemed to notice. She gave them all the first appointment of the day, whichever day it was. So there were between 4 and 10 people showing up at 7:30 in the morning saying they had an appointment. She said she would have loved to be there in the office while all that was happening. Her solution worked. She said she worked very hard to keep a professional voice when she was assigned to record the emergency ad the dentist bought from the radio station. The business cards we've handed out over the last couple of months contained an error. Our actual phone number is 123-4567. Please make a note of it. Thank you for your continued patronage. Donna passed away several years ago. I miss my friend. I know she'd appreciate being remembered for this episode in history. I am baffled at companies who make this mistake and see no need to rectify it. I mean, I'm guessing it's not really the receptionist's job, but I would be hoping that if I had a receptionist and they got those complaints, they would forward it. Bottom line here is the bottom line. All these customers are calling and blowing up this person's phone that could be converting into actual business for you. I mean, I don't know about this dentist's office, but they must have been doing darn well to not have to even remotely worry about trying to convert all these people calling the wrong number. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy awesome stories of revenge, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is Love It When One Doc Chews Another Out in ER. So about, 6 years ago, I got to witness the best revenge on a rude, egotistical doc. So to start off, I have something called EOE, eosinophilic esophagitis. Basically think anaphylaxis, but instead of your airway swelling shut, your esophagus does. At this time, I did not know I had EOE. I thought the choking was due to anxiety, as I've always been told. Husband and I went to dinner and it happens, I start choking. I don't panic because this is normal for me. It happens. Get up to go to the bathroom to force myself to puke, except this time 20 minutes in and I can't. I'm now starting to panic a little. Husband decides to take me to the ER because I could always throw up or manage to swallow with lots of water before, but it's never taken this long. We get there, I walk in calm and tell the receptionist I'm choking. She panics and calls the doc immediately. He takes one look at me standing there calmly and breathing through my nose and says, "You are not choking, wait for triage." Sigh. An hour later, I get called into triage, tell them I'm choking, get told, "You can breathe, you are not choking. It probably is just a sore throat since it's flu season." They'll call me back. Another hour, at this point 3 hours since it started, and they get me back. This doc insists I'm not choking. People choking can't breathe or talk, and obviously I can, and he can't see anything. At 2 more hours, 5 hours at this point, I use my phone and call patient advocate of the hospital and say I'm in the ER and I need help and a second opinion, and doc refuses. She comes down and talks to me and gets a GI doc to look at me. Needless to say, within 30 minutes he has me prepped for a scope. And boy, did the sparks fly. I had a severe impaction that, because of how long it was that I'd waited, even another hour or so, I was looking at my esophagus rupturing. He put the impaction in a baggie and threw it at the ER doc and tore into him in the middle of the ER about listening to patients. And even if he doesn't think someone is choking and they say they are, he better have a consult for GI immediately and maybe pick up a book or two. Anyway, the GI doc is who told me about EOE and explained what it was and what was happening. Never saw that ER doc again at the hospital. I love that OP had to clarify that they never saw that ER doc again, as if it's almost expected that you would see an ER doc more than once. I have been to the ER before. The doctor who treated me, wonderful person. Honestly, one of the nicest doctors I've ever seen. Would never want to see him again though. This next story is, want to cheat and lie about it? I'll confirm my suspicions. Originally posted this to r/legal advice, but I'm moving it here since it's been a couple days and I'm fairly certain this wasn't illegal now. Basically, I had the suspicion that my boyfriend was cheating. We have opposite days off and his phone is constantly dying when I'm not with him, so I can't see the location. I'm a first responder and have a lot of downtime when it's not a weekend. While at work, I did some social media lurking, saw that one of his friends posted a snap of him and found the location from his snap. His friend had snap maps on, so it wasn't that difficult. From the address they were at, I found the previous owners of the house. The previous owners were dead, so I looked at the obituary. I searched for each one of the grandkids on social media, and I eventually found the one that was friends with my boyfriend on Facebook. His friends list is private, so I actually had to do some searching. He can see my location all the time, so I decided to mess with him. I tethered my phone to my MacBook and spoofed my location to be at her house on my Find My iPhone. My intention was to make it look like I was friends with her and see if he'd confess. I pinned my location there for 8-ish hours. He never confronted me about it. She did. He's the only one who has my location. Next thing I know, the girl is DMing me and calling me on Instagram over and over again. She sent me 4 hours of screenshots from my boyfriend of my location being at her house. I eventually answered and she started yelling at me, threatening me, accusing me of planting a device in her house, and accusing me of stealing his social security number. The only thing I did was spoof my location to see if he'd confess to the cheating. She told me that the police are searching the property for any sort of device and that I'm going to be sorry. I truly did not think that it would play out this way. The only thing my ex-boyfriend has said to me is, "What device did you plant at her house?" over and over again via text. I found out what I needed to know and got a little revenge out of it too. It's been a couple days and I haven't heard from either of them, but I can only laugh when I think about how they probably tore that house up looking for a tracking device. So is it to be assumed that the ex-boyfriend also lied to this person that they were probably secretly seeing? Because if the truth is they just looked at track my location or, the Find My iPhone, and they saw the location was set to her house, wouldn't that only just imply that their phone had to have been there? I don't think there's some tracking device you can use in lieu of your phone on Find My iPhone, is there? I don't know if you can use like an AirTag or something. As far as legal or illegal, in my opinion, you never actually stepped foot on that property, you weren't even there. I don't think using a location spoofer just for Find My iPhone is necessarily illegal. Maybe breaking Apple's TOS, but I doubt Apple actually cares here. Our next story is, say something offensive to me and are surprised when I respond in kind? In the 1990s, I worked closely with a lady who was quite overweight but tanned and wore a lot of jewelry and makeup. Mary was great at her job and I liked her. At the time, I was skinny and I didn't like that about myself. I ended up taking a day off in the middle of the week and had to go into work for something. The place was business casual, but I was wearing shorts and tennies. I would only be in there for a minute. I entered my cube and Lisa was working with my cubicle mate Bob, who I was mentoring and was a friend of mine. Mary sees me and says, "Look at those skinny white legs," and laughed. It ticked me off, and without thinking I replied, "Look at that big fat butt." Man, the air went out of the room. My buddy gasped. I got what I was there for and left. I felt bad about it. I had no desire to hurt her, and I'm sure I did, but she started it. It was never mentioned, but had it been, it was a hill I would die on because she started it. I left a year or so later. I hope she's doing okay. I think OP's completely justified here. If somebody's gonna just out of nowhere attack you for your look or your appearance, fire right back in my opinion. Our next story is, you want drama? I'll give you drama. This happened during my college days in the 2000s. I majored in business admin, and one of my classes we had to take for the core subjects was business management, which I shared with a few of my friends who took the same major and a few other acquaintances who were in a different major, but took them as a part of their elective courses. One of the acquaintances, whom I'll call Gina, not real name, was one of those that really had to stick her nose into other people's businesses. If she sensed someone talking about something juicy, in her eyes, she would quickly insert herself into the conversation and insist the person to spill the tea for her, regardless if she knew the topic of discussion or not. Not only that, she had absolutely no inside voice whenever she joins a conversation. She adopts this loud and proud attitude and would just talk and respond loudly during the conversation that you can sometimes even hear her outside of the room. Even when the topic in question is just a general discussion of a core subject that she didn't even take the class of, she'd insist on joining the conversation and either 1, spout out absolute nonsense and be completely oblivious that she had said anything wrong, or 2, steer the conversation to finally talk about something she is familiar with. Not only that, she's the type of person who has to one-up you at any topic. For example, "You got a Nobel Prize? I got knighted by the Queen" type of attitude. It got to the point where she sometimes tries to butt into private conversations or people talking about personal matters and insist on hearing about it, and also give unsolicited advice even though she knows freak all about the issue. And if you try to dismiss her, she will loudly chastise you for not including her into the conversation and not being a good friend for doing so. As an Asian ingrained in polite Asian culture, remember I'm not from the US, we would either just smile and nod and tolerate her presence, or try to make an excuse to leave the room to continue our discussion elsewhere, away from her earshot, and our dear old oblivious Gina would move on to the next grapevine to grab the next gossip. One day, I was talking to one of my friends, Jordan, who takes the same major as me, also not real name, about a family crisis at home. If I recall correctly, I think it had something to do with their father facing possible jail time for embezzlement and that they might face potential dropout from college because their father was the main breadwinner and the one paying for college tuition, and their mother might not be able to cover it in the future once their father is officially convicted. As usual, Gina saw how intense our faces were while we were talking, despite us using hushed tones, and plopped herself next to us to get the scoop. I tried dismissing her, saying that this is a private matter and that she shouldn't get involved, but of course, she took offense and loudly chastised me in front of the whole class for being antisocial, leaving her out, that's not what friends do, all I want is to help, I just want to know what's so wrong about that. Everyone heard her but decided not to interfere. Again, polite Asian culture. But we could still see that all eyes are on us to see how this drama unfolds and how we're going to deal with her. Jordan's face became visibly distraught and uncomfortable, both by the prying eyes and Gina's endless loud chastising, and it was obvious if Gina didn't shut up, all heck would break loose. Then it suddenly clicked on me on one of Gina's quirks. She was the type that had no patience for foreign films or TV shows. She would only watch movies or TV shows if they were in English, Mandarin, or Cantonese, like famous Hong Kong movies and or TV shows. Anything other than those 3 languages, she would not touch them, even if the show comes with subtitles, because she doesn't have the brain capacity to read subtitles and watch the show at the same time, and even more so when it comes to anime. During that time, the 3 kings of anime, Bleach, Naruto, and One Piece were the rage. And while I'm not a die-hard fan, I'm kept up to date with the storyline thanks to being a backseat audience whenever my now husband, then boyfriend, watched those 3 shows every week when it came out. And we knew for a fact that she actively avoids anything to do with anime because she has no patience to watch them and is completely ignorant of anime fandoms, and from there, the nerdy gears in my head turned the cogwheels to sprout out my demon horns into imaginary existence. I gave my friend a "I got this" look, pretended to sigh in defeat and said, "Fine." We were talking about how we could get our hands on the One Piece. One Piece? Gina's eyes began to show intrigue and a bit of smugness, thinking that she had worn me down. I said, "Oh yeah, didn't you know? It's a family treasure heirloom in Jordan's family for generations." I proceeded to basically tell Gina the plot of One Piece anime, but replacing the anime characters' names with Jordan's in their family. How Golden Roger was their ancestor who used to be a pirate in his heyday, and had kept a stash of treasure hidden somewhere in the far corners of the earth, and that a treasure map has become Jordan's family heirloom and passed down from generation to generation. And now that Jordan's grandfather had bequeathed the map to them in his will, they were now trying to discuss the best way to travel to find this One Piece. I spun tale after tale, may have even included Naruto and Bleach plots into the mix to keep her intrigued. All the while, everyone in the classroom, those in the know anyways, were just trying very hard to keep a straight face at my fanciful tale. Even Jordan played along and added their own spin into the plot to keep the conversation going, and dear old oblivious Gina just lapped it all up. We kept it up for almost 2 weeks as Gina kept coming back for more of Jordan's family lore, in which we kept feeding her more anime plots. At the same time, it gave Jordan a bit of stress relief and distraction from their own real family crisis, until one day, at the campus cafeteria, we saw Gina with another group of her friends about 2 tables away from us, and we could hear her talking in her usual loud self about Jordan's family lore. Yeah, if a story is juicy enough, she would tend to spread around to anyone who would listen. Another bad habit of hers. One of her friends, whom we know is an anime fan, suddenly calls her out. "Hey, I thought you said you didn't watch anime." Gina, with an obvious disgust on her face, said, "Of course not. I wouldn't touch them even with a 10-foot pole. Don't lump me with your lot." They said, "Really? Then why does your story sound like the anime plots of One Piece, Bleach, and Naruto?" Gina went dead silent for almost a full 2 minutes to let everything sink in before she, very slowly, turned towards us sitting 2 tables away and gave us the world's deadliest death stare, in which we just grinned and comically shrugged at her before walking out of the cafeteria laughing our heads off. We're not sure how she knew, but she realized on that fateful day when we started telling her the family lore, everyone in class was in on it because no one came forward to stop or correct us. She completely stopped talking to everyone in class and no longer butt in on conversations after that because she couldn't trust anyone at that point. And by mid-semester, she dropped out of this class altogether. From what I heard, she picked a different elective class to go to just so that she would stop feeling the building paranoia of, if OP lied about her conversation with Jordan, what else are others lying about in their conversation? In her mind. Good riddance either way. What blows my mind is surely this tale is so incredulous and insane that surely nobody after a while would buy this ancestor was a pirate and hid this hidden treasure across the world, and now we are getting this treasure map and we're gonna try to figure out where it is. Like, who really expects that kind of stuff to actually happen in real life? On top of their conversational skills, I think they need to work on how gullible they are. Our next story is, my childhood bully is a heroin addict. So a few years ago, I moved to an area I didn't grow up in. It's been heaven meeting new people and starting to do new activities. Up until about a year ago, I've never ever thought about my life before moving. I grew up in care, spent a lot of time in prison as a teen/early 20s, so my hometown holds very little for me, and I'd rather forget it altogether. About a year ago, outside the local Sainsbury's, to my horror, I saw my childhood bully looking an absolute wreck of a human, barely conscious, talking on the phone, oblivious about H. The kid absolutely tortured me, worse than the usual bullying. My heart started jumping out of my chest immediately. Can't let this go. Do I hit him? I'm 90 kilograms now. I hold a blue belt in BJJ. Could easily make him cry. No cameras. Not going back to jail for this cretin. What can I do? I need revenge. So I pull my phone out of my pocket and dial 101. Tell the lady on the other end of the phone I've just seen this guy talking about H and pulling little silver wraps from his bag. Only the former was true. So I sit for 10 minutes to see if this has worked, and boom. Sooty van pulls up, out jump 3 coppers and run his pockets. They actually do find H and his phone. Arrested. I have no idea what happened to him for it, but he was gone for at least 2 months. Didn't see him once. So now, every single time I see him anywhere in my city, I do the same. Call police, say he has H. I've done it about 4 times now. Starting to think this is actually doing him a favor, keeping him off the streets and away from H. Do I carry on or… Well, I mean, if they show up and they find that they do have something on them every single time, maybe at some point they'll actually learn and, not immediately go back to that. Maybe if their systems are good where they live, they'll actually put them in some kind of rehabilitative center. Ultimately though, as long as OP's keeping this person from using H, I think they're doing a great thing. Our next story is Wrong Number, Me at 4 in the Morning. I had forgotten about this as it happened about 15 years ago with a landline and call display. At 4 a.m., I get a phone call from some drunk with a party going on in the background, asking for someone who definitely does not live here. Buzz off. So I get up at 7:30 with nothing better to do than call them back, thanks to the miracle of call display. It rings and rings and rings until some hungover bag of crap answers the phone, and in my perkiest Sunday morning voice, I start to apologize for my rudeness of the previous evening, blah blah blah. He says, yeah right, whatever, and hangs up. So I give it about 20 minutes and call him again, and it rings and rings and rings until dude answers again. He was definitely asleep, and I tell him that I really did feel bad about the way I spoke to him the previous night, and what was the name of the person you wanted to talk to. At this point, he told me to freak off, and my fun was over. I just know that person was probably so much more likely to go and unplug their landline if it was a landline. Either that or it might have at least been back in the day where phones had batteries that you could pull out. Either a handset or an actual cell phone. Probably rip the battery out and pass out for the rest of the afternoon. This next story is Petty Revenge on a Petty Homeowner. So about 20 years ago, I worked for a lawn care company. My job was to apply fertilizer and weed killer. I had to drive all over and got to meet a lot of people. This guy sticks out. I was in a very nice neighborhood. The lawns were huge and required over an hour to get the job done. No big deal, that's what they pay me for. After putting down the fertilizer, I would go around and spot spray the weeds. While I did this, I would put out pesticide treatment flags. I'd put one in each corner of the lawn. I figured if I showed I got the corners, they would assume I got the middle too. The owner of this house was home. I could see him watching me through the windows. No big deal. He was a smaller dude. I am not. This becomes relevant later. Anyway, he watched me do the whole treatment. I put out my 4 flags, got in my truck and moved on, like I always did. When I got back to the shop, the secretary asked me about his lawn. Apparently he was upset because there were no flags in the middle. How could he be sure I did it all? He apparently screamed at the secretary about it. I was stunned. I assured her I did my job and she and my boss believed me. I even said he watched me do it. They asked why he wouldn't say anything to me. I said he looked small. Maybe he didn't want to confront me. I'd played offensive line in college and looked the part. They laughed and said that was likely the case, but they said I should go back the next day and spot spray the weeds again, making sure to put out more flags. The flags came in bundles of 50. I put at least 1 bundle in my pocket. It might have been 2, it's long enough ago where I can't remember, and got to work. About every 6 steps I put down a flag. He was going to know I hit every inch of his yard. He watched me do this. By the time I was done, his lawn was practically white. When I got back to the shop that afternoon, my boss and the secretary were smirking. They told me he called again. I shrugged and said, well, he knows for sure I got his whole yard now, right? They burst out laughing and said, that's what we told him. If you have a problem with me, talk to me about it. If you would rather bully a 60-year-old lady over the phone, enjoy picking flags out of your yard all day. What annoys me is surely OP did a good enough job and they just didn't put a million flags in the yard, which to be honest sounds like an excessive thing anyways if you're doing whatever spraying or whatnot, applying fertilizer and all that. But I mean, hey, I guess the person wanted to make sure they got their money's worth, and hey, they certainly did. This next story is, I got payback on an awful regular at my fast food job. So I, 19-year-old female, quit my crappy job at a fast food chain that has a certain arch recently, and remembered this story which I thought was funny. Unfortunately, this is a very true story. I know, a bit ridiculous. We had these regulars that would come through the drive-thru near enough every day, and I was always the one handing food out the window. There was an older couple, and I was happy to make accommodations to allow handing them food and drinks easier. However, it became increasingly difficult to allow their awful attitude towards me. For context, my branch of the restaurant was one of 5 in my town, but the rest were 20-ish minutes away. We were the worst rated as we were a small but extremely busy as a result, and run by literal teenagers half the time. Lunch and dinner rushes were a mess, as managers were more concerned with stats than actually running the place well. This couple would come through at our busiest time, order the same thing, shouting at the order taker, payment window, and me for how slow we were. Our small kitchen was unable to accommodate how busy we got, so wait times were often 300 plus seconds, supposed to be 120. Every time they'd yell at me for how busy we were, how slow, how their food would be cold, how it wasn't fair to make an old couple wait, and every time the man would ask for extra cream on his latte, and if he didn't get it, he would become irate. I would do it for him, because I'd learned to take the bullet for taking too long rather than deal with this guy. So much so, he would call me his creamy girl with a crap-eating grin on his face, and every time I'd laugh but explain that it wasn't appropriate. On this day, I was maybe 16 or 17, we were flat out busy, 600 plus seconds, when the cream couple arrived. I asked them to pull into a bay and we would bring the food out so we could serve the next customer, whose order was prepared. He went ballistic on me, refusing to move, shouting at me, slamming his hands on the dashboard, classic temper tantrum and refusing to move. This went on for so long, I started explaining to my manager the issue, who wouldn't take crap, the situation, and she phoned the police to remove the guy. This is usually enough of a threat to get the customer to go, but not this time. He said something along the lines of, "Every time I come here, we have to wait and my cream melts, and every time we come here, you're working. You are an awful person." I'm not the kind of person to take crap from people. You get the energy you give. But up until now, I had been forgiving. So I blurted out while he was yelling at me, "So? Go somewhere else. It's called problem solving, dude." He was stunned before lashing out again, explaining this place was his only option and there was nowhere I could make him go anywhere else. So I said, "Wanna bet?" Latte and extra cream in hand, I poured the coffee all over the roof and window of his Fiat Panda. Edit to clarify, I was going to pour it out the window, but he was parked too close. But as I was thinking about it, I realized I could safely pour it onto his car window and roof and not burn him. I then asked him again to pull around and his order would be ready soon, and slammed the window. I then promptly burst into tears out of exhaustion and hate and began making my way to the manager to tell her my crime. The police turned up basically straight after. We explained what was going on while Cream Man was trying to open the window. They asked him to go and explained he was now trespassing if he didn't go. Long story short, next thing I saw was the 70-plus man swinging at this copper before quickly getting put into the cop car, leaving his very frail wife still sat in shock, latte-less. Did this man deserve to get arrested? Probably not. Was it appropriate for me to pour coffee on his car? Maybe, maybe not. You decide if I'm the jerk if you want. Either way, it felt good. Plus, I didn't lose my job. Honestly, I'm really glad that OP, who had been taking honestly legitimate harassment, honestly really inappropriate harassment too, calling them creamy girl, and I'm just glad that after they did all this and the cops showed up, that they didn't get in any trouble for it. Thankfully, I think most people saw the situation for what it was and wanted to protect this person who had been legitimately harassed countless times. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.